Four adversaries found themselves up against a formidable enemy, an enemy so vile from out of the sky. They must destroy it and cut it into 4 pieces. Once this was achieved, they were tasked with keeping it hidden from the world forever, so that the fate of the future might still remain to this day to be concrete. However, one day, when their descendants are watching upon the item that was lost to time, we found our body reuniting itself and rebuilding itself after a UV light was shined upon it. Will the future ever be the same? Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And this is the final Doctor Who review for the 13th Doctor, at least for today. And that is Resolution. So, what is Resolution about? Well, essentially, a Dalek crash lands on Earth back in the kind of prehistoric times and finds itself in the middle of one of the greatest battles known to history. This scout Dalek tries to see if the Earth is vulnerable enough for the Daleks to conquer. However, what it doesn't take into consideration is that the people of Earth will defend their last breath. They manage to trap the Dalek and then cut it into 4 pieces. However, when the 4 soldiers who were supposed to go and hide it are supposed to have buried it, one of them was shot with an arrow, and the piece of that alien was then used or left somewhere for decades. However, 2 archaeologists in the far future accidentally managed to pick it up and use an LED light on it. By shining this on top of the Dalek, it manages to reform and reconstruct itself. That then causes a giant problem when the Doctor begins to detect the phenomenon and points out to her friends that a Dalek incursion is going to happen on Earth. That the DNA device that was found in the sewer and the giant octopus was none other than a Dalek mutant. The Dalek mutant then strapped itself onto one of the archaeologists' back and broke into the Black Archive, stealing bits and pieces of Dalek armor to then go and build in a welder's. The Dalek becomes a piece of scrap, bits and pieces remnants of its original casing, but not quite complete. Dalek then tries to call for the fleet, but to no avail. Meanwhile, in a background plot to this, we find ourselves in a situation in which Graham and Ryan are coming to terms with the loss of Grace, and to make matters worse, it turns out that Ryan's dad has turned up on the doorstep. Now, Ryan's dad definitely was not the greatest person to be in his life, but it is something that they will have to face inevitably. However, Ryan's dad definitely comes in handy when they need to burn the casing of the Dalek. The Doctor makes the Dalek afraid and makes sure that it remembers her face, and then they manage to track it down. However, it seems like the Dalek managed to take down the Wi-Fi, which of course angers a lot of people in the UK and anyone in the surrounding area. Doctor manages to take down the Dalek and defeat it to an extent. However, it turns out that the Dalek survives by latching onto Ryan's dad. It then demands that the Doctor takes them to Skaro. The Doctor then takes the Dalek to exactly where Skaro should be and explains that Skaro burned in a cinder. Now all that remains is a fallen star, a raging fire. This is old Skaro, and nothing remains of it. The Dalek then is falling out into the abyss, and Ryan's dad is almost taken with it. However, they choose to forgive him and manage to get rid of the Dalek once and for all. 2 archaeologists then ask each other out on a date,
and the Doctor and her friends get ready for more adventures in time and space. So, resolution. On second, third, or fourth watch, I really actually appreciate this story much more than I did the first time I watched it. The first time I watched it, I was a bit of an and an but I really do appreciate the fact that the Dalek doesn't look perfect in this story. It's a new design to it, and yes, it's a little bit rustic, but of course, as we know in this story, the Dalek doesn't actually have the ability or the resources to make a proper Dalek shell. So this is as close as we'll come to in this story, having anywhere near what a Dalek realistically would look like in kind of rustic chic. And for that reason, I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, you beautiful people.